There's a couple of different roles. I think you just have to identify which role you think you're gonna fit best at, and then try to hire around your weaknesses. Because I'm strong in sales, so these guys can complement me.
So the hiring process for you being a one-man show in the beginning, it's always about what's your weakness. What don't you want to do? Double down on what you do want to do, right?
Yeah, because what you'll find is that you're so much more energized throughout your day. And since these are typically long days, you can get drained really quickly by doing stuff that you don't like to do. I see a lot of new investors that just try and do everything. And I don't mean to go hire somebody right away.
Right.
But I mean, what is this guy costing me? He was costing me, I think, $600 or $700 a month. And he was taking out a huge load off my back. Then I could just focus on sales and finding deals.
All right, so we got Alex Camacho on the podcast. Thanks for coming, man.
What's up, Josh? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So, Alex, you have a pretty big operation in LA right now, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we predominantly focus on fix and flip houses in LA, mostly entry-level stuff. We're not doing anything fancy or higher end. So we fix and flip about 20 properties a year. There, and then we keep a handful of those. Obviously, I don't just flip. I do that to make money, but I keep typically 10 to 15% of those. But then also we invest in other states. So a couple years ago, I moved to Hawaii, so I do have a couple properties there. But the majority of our business is in Southern California. And then I did buy my first multifamily this past year in 2022, an 18 unit in Phoenix.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's the one in Arizona, the Phoenix one, right?
Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, that's the one with Will's also, right?
Will's a GP on that. He's partner on that deal. He also helps me run all of the LA operation.
It's too bad we missed him today.
Yeah. Shout out to Will.
Shout out to Will.
Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He's going to be flying in a couple of hours. But he's my COO and also acquisitions director. So he has kind of a dual role helping run everything.
So he's a COO, which means that you're the COO and visionary, right?
Yeah, so I'm the owner of the company, majority owner, CEO, and visionary. He is COO and has a minority ownership of all the deals, and then he also makes a lot of money on the acquisitions because he brings in deals too.
Got it. So can you break down what a visionary is for a business?
There's this popular book called Traction where it discusses that for most big businesses, there's usually two big roles, which is the CEO, which pretty much kind of runs everything and then sets the vision, the strategy of the company, where things are going, where you want to go. And then there's a COO that kind of deals with a lot of the details, getting that vision to come to fruition, right?
Yeah.
And so you really need a combination of both. There's classic examples such as Bill Gates and I think Steve Ballmer. You don't necessarily have to be an entrepreneur. You could be an entrepreneur. And that's what I think when I think of COO, somebody that can help grow a business, someone that can get into the details and help keep the team accountable and keep everybody focused. And then the visionary is working on all the other high level stuff.
So what I heard was for visionaries, you have to have a dream so big, it has to fit everyone else's in it.
Yeah, being a leader is something you should take very seriously because people's success in business is dependent on your vision and also what the resources and all the ideas and everything you bring to the table, and all the experience that you have. So I was not really a natural born leader. I'm more of a I'm ambitious. I'm a hustler. I'll go out there and make great income, but owning a company and managing people and doing all that is something that I had to really learn.
What were some things that helped you become that leader? Because I know your operation, right? You have, I don't know, a dozen people working for you right now?
Yeah, so I have a team of 15 people. 6 of them are virtual assistants. They're actually in different countries,
really?
Which is very interesting. Yeah, 6 different countries.
Wow.
It's Turkey, Mexico, Ecuador, Trinidad, Philippines. There might be one I'm missing one. I'll remember it later. But so they're in different roles. Social media manager, marketing specialist. One of them is a project manager. Kind of helps my project managers that are on the field with the house flipping with those projects. Helps them in a supportive role. And then I have 3 project managers that help with fixing up these properties. I have 3 acquisitions managers that help get the deals. And then we already talked about Will. We also have Mikey, who's our operations manager. I might be forgetting someone. I hope I'm not. But yeah, there's a handful of roles there. Yeah.
When you're building the business, right, it all starts with finding the deal. Is that right?
I first became knowledgeable in this business by working for other investment
Okay.
companies. And then once I worked for those companies and learned the business, even though I did have some mortgage and real estate experience in the past, real estate investing is a different business. So I went to go work for those companies. And then after working for them, I kind of knew the type of company that I wanted to create, which I just basically took the great things that I learned from those two companies and the things that I didn't really resonate with, and I left those out. And then in all that, I also created my own custom
Yeah.
company, what I wanted to see, what I wanted to create.
So it sounds like you were an entrepreneur first, then became an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Yeah. I listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and that's a very well-known real estate investor podcast. And this theme kept repeating, hey, if you're interested in getting into this business, you should probably go get a mentor or a coach, or you should probably go work for somebody that's doing what you want to do. And so I literally just went on Craigslist, found a sales job at a real estate investors company, and got a job there as a salesperson.
It just so happened to be in real estate. That's just what happened.
Yeah, so I went and Googled like real estate investor, or not Googled, I went on Craigslist and I looked for jobs that were specifically real estate investor, and it was in sales because I had a lot of sales experience. And then so I went and worked for that first company for a year, and then I outgrew that role, and then I got recruited by a bigger real estate investment company, and I worked for them for a year and a half. And so those 2.5 years, I really cut my teeth. I learned a lot, all the nuts and bolts, saved a couple $100,000. And then about 3 years ago now, I've started my own company and kind of grown from there.
Got it. So your specialty is being a closer.
I love being in front of a seller and negotiating at their kitchen table. I love being on the phone, talking to real estate agents and closing deal negotiating. So selling, presenting, negotiating is some of my best skills. So I really try to use a lot of that most of my day. Although now I've had to add other skills, being in charge and running a company and whatnot.
Okay. So for the listeners, right, what's the best way to get better at sales?
I do not subscribe to this idea of anybody could be a great salesperson. I think some people can become competent in it.
Yeah.
But I think there's certain personalities that are more prone to being great at sales.
Right.
So I think the first thing is that you have to understand that you're going to get rejected a lot, and some people just can't deal with that. And then so for me, it's like every no is just getting me closer to the next yes. And so I have the philosophy that I have to go out there and create my success. I have to go out there and create deals. And I always wanted to be in the driver's seat of this business, and acquisitions and deal finding and deal getting and all that stuff being on the front end. You're really like the driver of the opportunities, and I wanted to be in that seat. But I just don't think everybody can be in that seat. Doesn't mean you can't be successful in real estate investing.
Right.
I just don't. That's like swimming upstream to me.
Got it.
So I think that you need to be persistent. You need to study other strong people in sales, because there's also like people that could be good at opening opportunities, but then might not be good at closing opportunities. So you could be good at talking to people, building some rapport, but then you could, when it comes to like having that uncomfortable conversation where you have to make them an offer that isn't usually a very high price.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to be received well. That's when the real money is made.
Okay. So who are your some of your favorite people that you learn from for sales?
In sales, I mean, I've been in sales for a long time now. So there was a couple of people that I worked with back in the banking days that were just really good with asking people to do stuff, because I would see that when it came to like asking for the sale, they wouldn't have any problem doing it and being not pushy, but just assertive about it. Like,
Right.
hey, based on this knowledge that you gave me and based on you being in front of me, I can help you with this product or service. You should buy it. And I think not a lot of people can do that. So I learned a lot in banking on the sales side, because I
Okay.
used to be a bank teller, and then, but that's very transactional, very kind of operational. And then once I got to the new account side where I was opening checking and savings accounts and stuff like that, I would be upselling people. So they came in for a checking account, they'd walk out with a credit card, a checking account, a savings account,
Right.
all that stuff. And we're trying to get their mortgage and everything too. So I think I learned a lot there. And even before that, one of my first jobs while I was still in high school was a telemarketer. I went out and started working pretty young because I wanted to, I grew up very humble beginnings. So I wanted to be able to have my own money to buy my own things. And things of that nature. So what I ended up doing is working for this telemarketing company, I think for like a good year, and really learned a lot there too. Again, with the rejection,
Yeah.
being on the phone, cold calling for hours and hours and hours, but then getting that like one good sale for the day. So but then I had people, 58 people told me no, but one person told me yes. So I learned a lot of that there. And then once I learned that, hey, I'm pretty good at this, I should try to get jobs or focus in roles that I'm going to be doing a lot of this. So
Okay.
it just kind of went from there. Like, hey, I was promoted a lot in the banking business because I continued to excel in the sales side of things. And so since I was a strength, I've always been a big fan of focusing on things I do well because there's a ton of things that I don't do well.
Okay. So it was a natural progression of you getting better because you were putting in the reps.
Yes, yes. And then I started to read books and then started studying, take some more sales courses, whatnot. But I think once I identified that, hey, this is something that can help me make a lot of money,
Yeah.
I should probably like focus on more sales roles.
Do you have any favorite sales course?
Well, I'm part of Ryan Pineda's program, so he teaches a lot in it, including the sales side of it. But one of the things that he teaches the most is like the closing side of things, and being not afraid to ask for the sale, not afraid to go out there and put in the offers that you need to eventually buy the deals, because also we're in a very profitable business.
Right.
One deal could make you $50,000.
Yes.
Right. One house that you keep could, make you $100,000 in equity, whatever that is. So, I like this book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. That's a good one. I think people should look into. One of the best books though on influence is Influence by Robert Cialdini. That's an incredible book. It's pretty dense. It almost reads like a textbook, but I read that book several times, and it discusses like the 6 principles of influence. And if you understand those, you can influence people, therefore sell more. So I think if I was going to recommend any book on sales, I would say to study that book, Influence.
Okay. So Influenced by Cialdini, and the first one was Pitch Anything by
Oren Klaff.
Okay. Those are
Those are
good.
2 fantastic books on some sales stuff. Yeah.
Your journey from being the entrepreneur into an entrepreneur, right? So I'm guessing that you came in by yourself first. You started doing all the deals yourself.
As I was leaving the second company, one of the things that they didn't want to do was they didn't want to do marketing because they were a company that was predominantly buying houses at the foreclosure auctions.
Okay.
So they were set up in a way where they had a lot of capital, almost like a mini kind of hedge fund without getting complicated, but they just had a lot of capital, and they were set up to buy 20, 30 houses a month. Like no joke, they were buying hundreds of houses a year. And I don't mean wholesaling, but they were acquiring them,
You're right.
and fixing them, flipping, and all that. Once I was leaving there, I had already saved enough money, but they didn't want to do the marketing, so I was still making money with them. So I began to market on my own. So it was almost like I was getting a head start. I'm starting my own company, and it wasn't a conflict of interest with them because they weren't doing it. So once I got a couple of deals on my own with my own marketing, plus I had several deals with them going, I had my first $100,000 month.
Wow.
Yeah, and that kind of just set me, because then I was like, okay, now I have this 100, and I think I had 30, 40,000 saved as well. So now I was always targeting having close to $200,000, because in that way I could flip 2 houses once and I could make $50,000 on each house. So I was always in my head thinking, okay, well then I could flip 2 houses, I can make $100,000 from those 2 houses, and then I do that again in a year. So I flipped 4 houses in that year, and I made $200,000 on just like house a quarter basically, right?
Right.
And so the numbers, I broke them down to pretty simple there, and then I had that big month, and I still stayed with that company like 4 or 5 months because I was still buying houses with them and still making money, just not as much on those deals compared to my own deals. And then I finally got to that point where, hey, it's time for me to move on. And then the first hire I did was a virtual assistant administration help, because I'm not strong. I don't like paperwork. I don't like the details. So I got somebody from Mexico. I was paying them, I think, like $6 or $7 an hour.
Wow. Where'd you find them?
Through a recruiting company.
Okay.
So I attended this real estate event, and then one of the people there I met had a small company that would find these virtual assistants, train them, and all that stuff, make sure they're the right fit for what you're looking for. And then I had him, and he helped out because he could do a lot of the stuff that I didn't want to do, and I could focus on the things I'm great at, such as the sales and negotiating and finding
Doubling
deals
down
that.
on your strengths.
Yeah. You're going to need to hire somebody either in admin or in project management if you're flipping, or it could be operations admin, sales, marketing, or like the acquisitions. So there's a couple of different roles. I think you just have to identify which role you think you're gonna fit best at, and then try to hire around your those weaknesses. I hire the admin, and then after that I hire the project manager because I'm strong in sales. So
Yeah.
these guys could complement me.
So the hiring process for you being a one man show in the beginning, it's always about what's your weakness. What don't you want to do? Double down on what you do want to do, right?
Yeah, because what you'll find is that you're so much more energized throughout your day. And since these are typically long days at the beginning, right? I mean, you're starting out, you're a startup, and you're just bootstrapping or you're making it happen.
Right.
You could get drained really quickly by doing stuff that you don't like to do. And then that's going to affect the productivity. Even if it's just, you're just a one-man show. But I see a lot of new investors that just try and do everything. And I don't mean to
Right.
go hire somebody right away.
Right.
But I mean, what is this guy costing me? He was costing me, I think, $600 or $700 a month, and he was taking out a huge load off my back. Then I could just focus on sales and finding deals.
Okay. So switching gears back into your whole team, right? How does that look for your acquisitions right now? What are you seeing in the market?
We haven't bought as many properties in the last 6 months. Right now, we're filming this podcast in January 2023. I've only bought 2 houses since the rates really changed in June of 2022. There was a couple reasons for that. One is my acquisitions team. I had to look at them, and I had to let go 2 of them because they just weren't cutting it. We went from a point where we were buying 2-3 houses a month to where we weren't able to get the same discounts we needed. So these guys weren't willing to put in the extra work. We were making 30 to 35 offers to get one deal. And then not this last acquisition, but the one before that took us a little bit over 70 offers to get one deal because of the additional risk. We got to get a better discount and all that. And so I let go of those guys. Also, during that time, we bought the 18 unit. So that has a huge potential as far as either how much money we make on it or how much passive income, if we keep it, it will generate. So we also kind of slowed down on acquisitions because a lot of our team bandwidth was, let's get this project, further along because it's our most expensive project, and we've had to put a lot of money down and a lot of money into the rehab, and it is our first multifamily, and it's not the same as single family. So a lot of learning there. And then what we did is we found much better candidates, so we brought them on board, and now they're putting in the work, and I'm seeing some progress in the 2 houses that we did buy in the last year are monster deals. Like they'll be cash flowing in California from day one.
Wow.
Like that's not really common, because we bought them at like 50%, 60% of what they could be worth after we rehab them, the ARV.
Wow. What's an ARV?
ARV is just an acronym. There's a lot of acronyms in real estate. It just stands for after repair value. What you think the property be worth after you remodel it or do something to it to make it nicer or repurpose it.
Okay. Well, when you're flipping a house, that's what you specialize in, right? Flipping houses and a little bit of wholesaling, right?
Yeah, we dibble and dabble a little bit, or we'll lock up a deal and then maybe it doesn't fit our buy box, and so we'll wholesale that. But I've never really resonated with the wholesale model, though I think a lot of people make money with it. We'll be doing a little bit more of it this year because it is harder to flip. You are acquiring the property, you are taking on debt.
Yeah.
So there's different risks there. But ultimately, like we know our box, and real estate is very market specific. I talked about this to somebody earlier today that I read this book called Markinopoly. Not a well-known book, and it's very small, but one of the best things I learned from that is there's no such thing as a national real estate market. And what I mean by that, or what it meant by that, is that real estate is very location dependent. So, for example, in LA, like the house prices in Echo Park are not going to affect the house prices in like Long Beach.
Really?
Necessarily, because they're different markets, so the demand is different. There is like a general overall market, but there's just so many little nuances, I guess. And so people get all tripped up with this, the market's too hot, the market's too cold. Dude, there's great deals all the time, no matter what market you're in.
So what are your best marketing channels right now to even acquire those really good deals?
We're actually still consistently sourcing houses from the MLS.
Wow.
We do still buy from wholesalers. We also do a lot of networking ourselves, and we also host an event, a regular event of a meetup, a real estate investor meetup. So we build a lot of connections there. We're able to talk to a lot of people that are taking action in real estate investing in SoCal of what we're looking to buy, so they know to think of us about these certain type of properties. Because that's the difference between flipping and wholesaling. Wholesaling, you're typically going to have a much bigger, I guess you're going to cast a bigger, wider net, and because you're not actually acquiring the property, you're just going to find an end buyer, an end investor
Right.
to buy the property. You just have to get a good enough deal, discount for it to make sense for you to make money, for them to make money.
Yeah.
Whereas flipping, you are holding the bag, you are acquiring the property, you are taking on debt, but we're really focused on a very specific kind of property and a very specific condition and very specific areas.
So for wholesalers, they have to cast a wider net. So they have to talk to a lot more people, get a lot more leads in. And then with you being a flipper, you need a little bit more money, where wholesaling, you don't need that much money to begin with, right?
Right.
But there are also those caveats. There's the pros and cons where, yeah, you're going to get it easier now to find the lead, but then you do have to hold the bag.
Yes, exactly. And there's pros and cons of both of them. I don't think either one is better than the other. I think the real important thing is that if you're making money flipping or making money wholesaling, you should be having a strategy to have long-term assets in real estate. Wholesaling and flipping is just active income, whereas holding an 18-unit building or holding, like I have also 9 single-family rentals in California, Hawaii, like those I'm holding. So those have actually made me more money than some of the other projects I've done because, you know, of just long-term appreciation and then paying down some of the debt and all that.
Yeah. So for getting all the leads, right? That sounds like a lot of follow-up, a lot of communication. How do you handle all
Well, I don't
of
do
that?
it anymore.
Yeah, you don't
I hold
handle-
them accountable. Well, so we have certain metrics. Very common term in business called KPIs, key performance indicators. It helps you focus on the most important numbers in your business. And one of our KPIs is offers made for the week. So my acquisitions manager, their main metric is how many offers did you make today? And that number is 3. It should be 3 offers every single day. Now, if they didn't make 3 offers that day, like what happened? Like, so when I go look at the dashboard of our KPIs, which is just a spreadsheet that shows all the numbers, that stands out to me. Okay, you made no offers today. Like, what happened? Oh, well, you know, I was negotiating this deal that we're about to get in a contract. Okay, but how long did that take? You know, it's like when I was in acquisitions, my best day I made 17 offers. Very regular, I'd make 5 to 10 offers a day.
Right.
So what are you doing? I'm holding them to a standard, like not even to the standard that I held myself to. So that's very important to me, like how many offers you made, and then we also track how many leads we got in that day. So we're tracking the offers, we're tracking leads. At least that's for acquisitions. There's other KPIs for the other departments.
So now we're going through the process, right? So how you get the leads is through networking, MLS, and wholesalers, stuff like that, right? And now we're talking about the acquisitions, actually putting in the offers, because you're not going to get every deal, right? You're going to get rejected a lot. And then, so after you find the deal, finally, you get an offer accepted. What's the next step after that?
There's this term called due diligence, which is basically you're examining and inspecting the property because you might have done a walkthrough, but that might have been 10 minutes. Like you really want to do what's called a scope of work, which breaks down what that $50,000 you're going to potentially spend to rehab the house. And then once you do that, you have a really accurate estimate of how much money you're going to spend. So that number could end up changing, therefore changing your offer. For example, we could walk through a property, make an offer, they like our offer, they accept it, and then during the 10 days that we have to do our due diligence, we find that there's a foundation crack on the property. Well, that could potentially be $7,000 or $70,000. You got to raise the house and everything, right?
Right.
So I didn't have that information when I made the offer. If I did, I would have made a different offer, or maybe I wouldn't even made the offer, right? So the next step there is going through the due diligence, inspecting the property, the condition. Also, we're really getting granular on the sales comps because if we're going to flip the house, then we need to for sure know what we're going to be able to sell this property for because it needs to hit our minimum profit desired. And if it doesn't hit that, then we need to cancel the deal or we need to ask for a price reduction to get it to the numbers that we need for us to buy the deal. So, you know, there's that process of due diligence, and then we vet the comps to make sure that our after repair value is solid. And then also we have to check the title through, make sure there's no clouts on there or issues with that won't allow them to transfer a clean title from them to us. And then once all that's done, I mean, pretty much concurrently, you're also getting the financing. Very few people that are investing in real estate are just buying everything all cash.
Right.
Most investors are using some type of loan or some type of leverage. And so as soon as we get a deal under contract, or sometimes a little bit before, we're already submitting that to several of our lenders to just see what they would offer us as far as terms. How much do we have to put a down payment? How much are they going to fund of the construction, a part of the deal? Because the lenders in investing will fund partly the acquisition and the other part will be the construction. Will you be doing that out of your pocket, or will they be funding some of that? And there's a little bit of a process. We don't probably have to go in detail on that, but
Yeah.
they, pretty much the bank will say, hey, we're going to give you the 50,000, but first go spend 20,000, fix some things up, and then come to us with the fixed up work. We'll inspect it and then give you that reimbursement, and then you can go spend that again, and then until you're done with the project. So there is people think that they need half of the amount of the project, but sometimes you might only need 20-30% of that total project to accomplish that. So for example, a $250,000 house, if you're going to put 20% down, is 50 grand, and then if you're going to put 50,000 to the house to raise up the value, that those two numbers together are 100,000. But those are not all at one time, right? It's
Right.
like first. So I think a lot of people make that mistake when it comes to like flipping, just assuming that they have to have 250,000. They have to have 300,000 in that same scenario to flip the house, but really they only need a third of that.
And there are some big companies out there, for example, the 250,000, right? Like I personally use Kiavi. So Kiavi has that 90% to LTV, which is loan to value. So 90%, they fund it. They fund 90% of the deal. All you need to bring in is 10% for the 250, which is 25,000, and they fund 100% of the rest of the rehab.
Now, there's a little caveat to that too. I'd like to add is that the better deal that you have, the more that they'll give you.
Yeah.
So if that house, say that same example, we're buying it for 250, it could be worth say 400,000 after I repair it. If I'm getting that deal at 200,000, let's say, instead of 250, then the bank is more likely to give me more of the purchase price because I'm getting this great discount, and they don't see a scenario where I'm going to lose money.
Right. So right now, what's your
But let me add to that. And then also flip side of that, if you're getting a very thin deal, a deal that doesn't have a lot of meat on the bone, then they could actually require you to put even more down because they think that's a riskier deal, or they could not want to fund it at all. So it's both sides.
Yeah. So those 90% LTVs weren't always around. That was only during the hot market, which is when.
I recently I like Kiavi too. I work with them. They recently helped me fund one of these two houses I just told you I bought in the last 6 months was from them, and they gave me good leverage because that's one of the things that we've adjusted. Before we'd go to the same lender because Civic, they were great, but then they started changing their guidelines, and so you as an investor you always want to have a stable of hard money lenders and potentially also private lenders because as an investor you always need cash. Opportunities come up, and so Kiavi gave us like 90%. I was like, yeah, take it. Let's go. Yeah, like everybody else was giving me like 80%, 75%. I'm like, and they gave us good rate and everything. But partly, I think they want to earn our business more, and they knew what we were doing, somewhat of volume. So I think there's a little bit of that. Relationships are so important when it comes to lending.
Yeah, when we're doing relationships, like you were saying, you want to have that Rolodex of people, right? Let's say that one company that you were working with prior, they changed the rates, right? And that only happens because you were actively looking for another opportunity.
So we've been pitching, like, instead of like maybe pitching the deal that we have to one or two of the lenders, we'll pitch it out to 5 lenders because the market's more challenging. So we need to make sure we're getting the best terms possible from these lenders now.
Got it. And then that only happens if you network, right?
Yeah.
So how powerful is networking for you?
It's incredibly powerful. What I do say about networking, though, is that when you're starting brand new, you're going to be able to provide possibly less value, or because like, you're just starting out. So it's more about asking questions, learning what's working for other people, getting connected. But as you evolve as an investor, you're able to contribute more value, right? Because you know more, you've taken more action. You have more to offer as far as like, okay, this is my experience, or these are my contacts. If you come across someone else you're networking with, you have more to potentially provide them than when you're just starting out and just as newbie. Because you don't want to stay in the newbie phase forever. Like you only need to learn so much. And then it's like, take action, get out there, get your feet wet, and then adjust from there rather than try to figure it all out YouTube University and never make an offer, never do any marketing, never go out there and network. So networking is important, but I just think it has its appropriate place as well.
Yeah.
Because now, like when I network, like I've done over 125 real estate investment deals in a difficult market, Southern California, most would say. And so I have a lot of value to give, right? If someone
Right.
brand new starting out, I could talk to them about any part of the equation that they have questions on. Where when I was just getting started or when I was working for those other companies, I couldn't provide as much value. So
Right.
just, I think that's something I like to tell people about the networking. Yeah, but it's super important.
So that's the networking part of the operation. Finding the deal, right? We're going back to the process. We found a deal and you're looking for the loan, right? So how do you even know it's a deal? What do you guys look for? What formula do you have? Like a ARV, whatever?
Yeah, we do have formulas. So there's a couple of key things that we look for. Number one, I would say, is the purchase price. So we try to stay under $500,000 purchase price for LA, core LA. And then there's another submarket of LA called Palmdale, Lancaster, that we will buy houses anything up to about $250,000. So we try to stay at or below the median price for that particular market and area. So that's what we've identified for the two markets that we invest in Southern California. So first, it should really hit that. If someone pitches me a deal at $895,000 purchase price with an ARV of say $1.1 million or something, whatever that is, like I'm not even gonna look at that deal because it doesn't even fit into my buy box or into my purchase criteria.
Right.
First of all, it matches our purchase criteria. And then again, this is coming from a flipper, not a wholesaler, because wholesaler, you could look at any deal.
Right.
Because you're not going to end up actually owning the property. You're going to sell it to somebody else. Also, I look highly at how much cash I'm going to need for that deal. Because since we're doing multiple deals at once, our liquidity changes.
Right.
One day we could have a lot of cash. Next day we buy a couple houses, not as much. And so we might be not as interested in buying that deal unless it's an even better discount. Because then we get into this situation where we're like, well, this is a great deal. We don't want to lose it. We can maybe raise some capital or we can wholesale it. So there's definitely that. But we have our box. We stick to it. And then, we don't do heavy rehabs. So there's stuff that's like automatic, like no. If it's a rehab where it's like gut job, or if it's something where it's an addition or something that like a lot of these wholesalers or agents will pitch these deals and say, hey, you could build one of these ADUs. It's called accessory dwelling unit. I'm sure you're familiar. They're doing a lot in your market, also in our LA and San Diego. But we're not doing those. That's not our niche. It takes way longer. You're building a brand new structure. You're having to pull permits. You're having to get architect planning, all that involved. That's a way different process than what we do. So there's a lot of what we do is like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this.
Right.
Okay, this fits our box, but it's not a good enough discount from what we needed at right now. So the formula we are using right now, and we're seeing a common pattern, is before we were around 70% of the ARV, so we would be buying at that. Now we're closer to 60%. So we just have to offset the additional risk, because if the house prices go down 10%, we're still going to be profitable. But if you buy this thing at 70% of what it could be worth, home prices go down. You do all this work after all the costs, you're breaking even, maybe losing something, or making very little money for a lot of work.
So that's what happens with your formula. We just talked about the loan. All right, let's say it is still $250,000, and you put 10% down with your broker, right? Some people don't have $25,000. How do people fund it?
People start thinking quickly about the cash they need rather than going out there and finding an opportunity that they can go share with someone else. So one of the things I'll tell you when this story is relevant to your question is, when I was leaving that second company, I remember I had some money and I got that deal. But then I couldn't get the hard money loan in my name because I technically was not on the title on all those other 60 deals that I did for the other companies. They're the ones that actually owned it. I was just an acquisitions person working for that company. So even though I had worked on 60 plus deals up until that point, that I was the one that really did all the work to get it acquired, I couldn't get a hard money loan on my own deal. So I had to go find what's called a JV partner, a joint venture. So I searched my network. I had this great deal on my hands, so I had something to talk about to these people. I made a list. It was, I think, like 8 people or so. And then I called all of them, texted them all, and like, hey, I got this great house. Most of them already knew what I was working on because I've been pretty active throughout my journey on posting stuff regularly on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and all that. And so they kind of knew what I was up to. And then One of them bid. He's like, yeah, man, I'll be happy to do it. I negotiated. He put up all the money. He managed the rehab, and I brought the deal, and I helped with the resale of the property. I'm not an agent, but like I know how to list property and listing strategy and all that. And so it was a great partnership. We split the equity 50-50. And that's what's funny about it. I had saved all this money after having that big month, and then I didn't have to use it. Your goal should be when you're getting started is just know how to find and go find a great deal. Once you do that, you can go present the opportunity and then find somebody to put up all the money for that deal and then split the equity.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to do that anymore. People offer that all the time to me. They're like, hey, yeah, I'll fund your deal and then, we'll split it 50-50. But I'm not really in a position anymore that I need to like give up that much equity.
Right,
But that's what I need to do at the beginning to move forward.
It sounds like networking comes up a lot in real estate, right?
Yep.
And you do have an event coming up, right? The Deal Maker Summit.
Yeah, so we've been hosting now an event in LA, downtown Los Angeles, for about a little more over a year. It's grown. The last one was over 400 people.
Wow.
So it's we call them the Deal Makers. That's our tribe. And so we'll be having on January 28th. It's going to be like a 9 to 5 event all day. We're going to have speakers. There's going to be a lot of networking. It's going to be estimated about 250 people or so. It's less people than the last one because the last one was free. This one is paid, but it's not very much money. It's like $100. VIP is like $250. But we're gonna pack it with value. There's gonna be an after party, just a mix of people. But we also transferred it to a paid event just because we want to also weed out people that are just not taking action and not very serious about being in the business. But yeah, man, anybody wants to come out, it's gonna be a great event. I think that people are gonna walk out of there ready to a lot more prepared to do deals in this market in 2023.
I know some of your guests are like real deal makers also, right?
Yeah, so we have some big names. Albert Preciado, he's a big figure in real estate and mortgage in Southern California. James Daynard, he's I would say, he's a friend, but also a mentor because he's worked on over 3,000 deals in his career. He started, I think, in 2008 or something. But the guy is still pretty young, and I mean, he's great on the rehabbing side of things, and he does high end, and he has a fully integrated business. So I think he's going to add a lot of value. And then we got a couple of big hitters from Hawaii because I got a big network of investors in Hawaii. So Indar Lang, and then also Daniel Kong is going to be there. And we also have Max Jimenez, who's an expert on the sales side, closing side. He does a lot of training for investors on helping them convert more of their leads and scripts and all the things that you need to not mess up these opportunities. Because once again, these are high stakes opportunities. I mean, you could foul it up and lose $50,000 on a deal. So getting your sales skills up is super important. And then I hope I'm not missing anybody. Oh, and then we have a couple people from Central California, Dean Rogers, Stratton Brown, and then Jason Pritchard, all studs, all very experienced. It's going to be like a California Crushers panel where they're going to kind of discuss a lot of stuff that they're seeing up there in Central California and what's working for them. So, yeah, it's going to be an all-star lineup.
Yeah, it sounds like really valuable, especially for someone that's starting out. Because all those guys are doing deals. They're not just any guru out there that is just talking about it,
Yeah, because what happens when people getting started, they start talking to people like their family, their friends, people they work with, and those people are not typically interested in real estate. So they might, real estate's hard right now, or they're gonna just discourage you. Just imagine you being in a room full of 250 other motivated, driven, experienced real estate investors. How is that gonna help you in your journey?
Exactly. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So going back to the process again, right? So we're right now we found the deal. We got it to the closing table. It's inked. What happens next?
A little before that, but towards that juncture, we're starting to talk to our contractors.
Okay.
Right. We're starting to bid it out to them. We don't automatically just give the deal or give the rehab project to the last contractor that we just worked with. We have a couple that we work with, and their bandwidth changes. Sometimes they're busy, sometimes they're not. So we'll bid it out to them and see who's the best fit, because one might be better, but then they're just not that available, and we need this to move forward, faster than their availability. So we bid it out to typically 3 contractors. The great thing about that is when you bid it out to multiple contractors, they have different ideas, they have different suggestions, And what we found is that we get the best of all their ideas and suggestions.
Yeah.
And then we just go with the right match for that project, which isn't necessarily the cheapest one. It's just the one that seems to fit that project the best. So we go through that process of picking the contractor, because sometimes it's my project manager basically managing all the subcontractors, because it might be maybe a little bit easier job.
Right.
Other times we're letting a general contractor just kind of run the project and be the project manager. So we kind of do a couple systems there just based on that particular project. And then we just move forward. We usually spend the first week or so planning the project. Before we used to hit day one. We're trying to get demo done. We're trying to trash it out. We don't want to miss a day. But what I learned from other investors, again, networking, is that it's better to plan things out and have a solid plan than to just hit the ground running, because then you're going to execute better, because the overall plan is going to be you have much more to be prepared for and things like that. It's just more structured, and you have a better chances of success with that project or being on time, on budget.
Okay. And then after that, everything gets rehabbed. Then you put it on the market, right?
We go through the rehab. There's always challenges. There's always things that come up. But we always try to make sure that we're rehabbing for that property. It's very common for new people to like over rehab, spend too much. Like, oh, hey, I want to design this and I want to do this and I want to add this. And then before you know it, like the deal's not profitable.
Yeah.
Your goal is to make the most profitable house, not the prettiest house.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's very true. People will over rehab or they'll under rehab. Like, this area needs this type of rehab, and then they under rehab it, and then it just sits there because the buyers for that market don't really want that product. And so you're not going to get what you expected. You saved money on rehab, but then you didn't sell at the price that you expected. So what was the point of that? So we go through the rehab phase, and then we do have to have a listing strategy. We look at the comps, because during the time from when you acquire it to when you rehab it, things can change.
Right.
Another comp could hit the market. Another house can get sold. Interest rates can change. So you have to reanalyze, make sure that your numbers still hit the same. So we do that. We talk to our listing agent. We have a flat fee agreement with our listing agent. So they only charge us a flat fee of 1%, because remember, we're giving them a house to sell every single month.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay a listing agent a full commission typically, because the hardest part of a listing agent is to find a motivated seller to sell a property. And a real estate flipper, he's a motivated seller. He needs to sell that property. So we've worked at something out with a couple of agents. So we send it to them. They send us the paperwork to get it listed. We decide on the listing strategy. Typically, we go with this model of list it low, let the offers flow, because you're usually better off having multiple offers, and finding the best one, picking the one that loves the house the most, than listing it really high and then not getting anybody look at it. And then you have to do a price reduction to sell it anyway, which doesn't look good. Yeah,
it's kind of like a counterintuitive strategy, right? A lot of people think, oh, I got to list it super high so it could go low. That's not what you want to do, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. We found way more success and consistency with, because then you start to use these offers to negotiate better. And it's better to say no to offers than to not get any.
So now we finished the whole deal, right? Now we got some money. Can you share one of your most favorite deals that you finished?
Yeah, so one of my favorite deals is my big house in Maui, Hawaii, because it took all of that experience that I had for me to pull that off. First of all, the way we got it through this method called driving for dollars. It's basically when you drive around neighborhoods that you want to invest in or buy property in, and you find all the ugly ones, the distressed ones, the ones that just looks like something's going on, and then you put them in this application, and this application helps you organize everything. And so we did that in Maui, Hawaii. Well, actually, I didn't even want to do deals there yet, because I had moved there and I was still working on managing my company remotely in LA. I was on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and then some people hit me up, and there was a guy on Maui. He's like, yeah, I want to work with you. I'll get after it. I'll be your acquisitions guy. And then so what ended up happening was like, I just said, no, I'm not ready. But after about 3 months, and I had my systems in place, and the team was getting deals in LA, I had that thirst. I'm like, 'cause I'm a deal junkie. I like to say that. At the end of the day, I love doing deals. Yes, I love making money, but it's kind of an art for me. It's just like putting these amazing win-win deals together. I was going to be going to LA on a trip, and I told him, hey, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. Get me 500 addresses, and then we'll start marketing to Maui. And he did that. He got like 700 addresses, and then we started sending mailers to them. The second month, this motivated seller called. He was a very savvy seller. He owned multiple properties in Hawaii, and he was living in Chicago. It was during the pandemic, so he couldn't get there. There was a lot of restrictions, and he was motivated. So my acquisition manager got him kind of on the fence, but he was not a closer like me.
Right.
So we were about to lose the deal. I was like, yo, get me on the phone with this guy. So I was able to get on the phone with him. I still remember clearly. I was like in LA, in an Uber, like on this really high stakes call, and I just beasted it. Like I just killed it, and then he agreed to the contract of $1.35 million. Originally, we thought we were gonna be able to flip it as a wholesale deal for $1.45 million and make like $100,000 and then move on.
And what is a wholesale deal?
Well, it would be where we locked up the deal, we got it under contract for the $1.35 million, and then we would have sold it to another investor, the contract, the right to buy the property at $1.35 for $1.45. So we make our $100,000 wholesale fee, and then that investor gets the property for, and they buy it for $1.45. Well, there was some stickiness to the deal. There was tenants in the property. They were paying on time. It was COVID though, and Hawaii is very tenant friendly, like California. So it really scared off a lot of investors that I was pitching the deal to. But I still believed in it because I saw an after repair value of $1.75 to $1.9 million. So there was some good meat on the bone there. And the property was built in like early 90s, so it wasn't like an old property.
Yeah.
It was just dated and needed some updating and some landscaping and some stuff. It wasn't falling apart. It was just lived in for some time. What I ended up doing is searching. It didn't happen. So I went to go the old model. I basically searched for a joint venture partner because I'm like, hey, I know this is a great deal. Let me see if I can acquire it with somebody else. So I searched my network, and those 3 months that I was there, I wasn't competition to the Hawaii investors there because I was working on Southern California deals.
Right.
So I built a great network of people, and so I leaned on that at that point with that deal. And then somebody referred me to an investor that was in Indiana that was looking for real estate in Maui, and we just clicked, man. And he flew out like the next day from Indiana, got his COVID test, and then was there for the walkthrough. And he was like, I want it. Let's do it. Let's do a deal. And so I negotiated 50-50 split on that deal. I only put $20,000 to lock up the deal, to the deposit to get the contract signed and open escrow. And then he's the one that put up the rest of the money. The cool thing about this deal too, and this is a little bit advanced, but during the escrow, instead of going with the typical hard money loan and do that, I negotiated with the seller a seller finance. So he only owed $400,000 on the house. What I asked him was like, what are you gonna do with all this money? He was like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. He wasn't really sure. I'm like, well, why don't you carry some of it? I used my negotiation sales skills basically make it seem like, oh yeah, this would be in his benefit, but like, I'm open to either way he wants to do it. And so he's like, look, as long as you put $200,000 in my pocket and pay off this loan that I have to pay off, $400,000, then I'll finance the rest. So essentially, we all we had to do is give him $200,000 in his pocket, $400,000 to pay off that hard money loan that he had coming due, and then he would carry the rest, and he would become the bank, and then we would owe him $750,000, which is the difference between $1.35 million and that.
Right.
And we did that, and I got a way better rate than hard money. Hard money would have gave me 9%.
Yeah.
He gave me 6%.
Wow.
And I had 3 years on that, meaning that I had a runway to have this lower payment for 3 years and figure something out, refinance, and all that. So long story short, I negotiated the seller finance, worked out. Obviously my partner was happy, like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
He put up $600,000, and I got my $20,000 back.
Wow.
So I actually had no money in the deal once we closed. Now, it was a dogfight because I did have to negotiate with 3 tenants that were savvy.
Wow.
So I had to give them $35,000.
Each or together?
Together.
Okay.
But it's great because I budgeted that. With all my experience with negotiating with tenants in California, they were paying on time. They were respectful, and they showed us the property, so they weren't hostile. So they checked all the marks. We're like, hey, I know I can negotiate with these people. And so I gave one of them $20,000, the one that had been there the longest and was the most like agitated about the sale.
Right.
And then the other one, $10,000. The one, $4,000 actually. I proudly say that the budget was $35,000. I got them out for $34,000. So I got them out within about 60 days of buying the property. And then I rehabbed the property. Dude, I had to fire 2 contractors. that were just overcharging me because Maui is very difficult rehabbing because there's not that much labor. It's expensive as far as materials because you're importing all the materials to the island, so there's additional costs there. So everything costs more. So and I didn't have an active project manager. I was managing a project, and it's not the best skill set. I don't really like project management. I can do it. I'm competent, but I hate it. It drains my energy. So I fired 2 contractors, and I actually had to fly in a crew from the mainland
Wow.
and house them at the house, and then they rehabbed and finished the job. We went over budget and all that, but in all that time, the market skyrocketed.
Oh man.
And so what we thought was we were gonna get an evaluation of 1.75 to 1.9 million ended up being like mid to 2 million, like 2.5 and north.
No way.
So we were able to go to the bank and say, hey, guess what? We want to refinance to keep this property. So we took a loan out for 1.75 million, and then we got an appraisal of north of 2.5 million, and we were able to do what's called a BRRRR, buy, remodel, rent out to tenants, refinance and repeat. So basically it's a big boy BRRRR, as I like to say, where we got almost all of our money out. I did end up during the whole process having to put some more money in. So I'm not gonna say I have no money in. I got like about 100 grand into the deal. He kept about 100 grand into the deal, but we kept the house, and then we did a cash out refinance. Got almost like $1 million out. He kept most of that, and because all the money he had put into the deal, because he also put the rehab and the down payment, and then we were able to now keep this like magical Maui house and have barely any of our own money in there. And this thing, I mean, I don't think there's anything for sale for less than $3 million now in that. So we have a lot of equity, and we have this property, and it was all because of all my experience with the tenants and with like finding deals and with negotiating and all that stuff that helped me like land this monster deal. And I would never have imagined that I would own like a big house in Maui that like I get to control, manage, and enjoy, and then not really have that much of my own money invested.
So let me get this straight. You bought that deal for 1.35, right? Yep. You bought that deal for 1.35. How much did you put in rehab into it?
It was 200,000.
200,000. So you're in 1.5 million. Let's just say.
Well, with the tenants and the holding costs, it ended up being like close to 1.6.
Okay, 1.6.
At least, yeah, it's 1.6, 1.65 was where we were already into the deal.
All right. So you're telling me you almost made $1 million in what time span?
And this was like 15, 16 months.
In 16 months, you made almost $1 million.
Yep.
That's amazing.
And in 50-50, so like my partner's happy.
Yeah.
And
with almost no money in the deal, right?
Yeah, with almost no money in the deal. Exactly.
That is really awesome, man. Everyone loves to hear about the successful stories, right? But there's not always that much to learn from them. Everyone learns something from their failures. Can you share with us one of those failures?
Deals or just like business?
Just business deals, anything that could be of value for the listeners.
So the first thing that comes to mind is just because I was a weak leader at the beginning, I attracted weak team members, weak employees, because I would just bring on anybody. If they seem motivated, cool, let's bring them on. And so what happens there, if you say yes to somebody, then you're saying no to somebody better than them.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a process to attract people to you or to actually have talented people work alongside you, then you're just going to have, B and C players. We like to say we only want to be around A players, but you got to be an A player for that, for you to attract A players. So I just attracted a lot of people that just weren't that skilled or weren't that complimentary to me. And I struggled, I was spending money on marketing, $6,000-$7,000 a month. It was going nowhere. I was frustrated, and just discouraged. And so for like the good first year, man, like it was a grind. It was a struggle.
Yeah.
I was not happy. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was paying a lot of expenses. And so I was a big failure for me, but then it helped me look internally and say, hey, man, you got to step your leadership game up. And that's, that's come around the time that I got involved with the Wealthy Investor, Future Flipper. Around the time I started just paying much more closer attention to other leaders around me that I wanted to emulate, because I didn't want to keep going through that where I'm just spending money, spinning my wheels. Like the whole reason I have a company is for me to like be profitable and for me to actually not be as involved in stuff that I don't like to do. And none of that wasn't really happening. But it was because of my, my failure in being a good leader and setting that example and then bringing the right people into my team.
So to attract A players, you need to become an A player yourself.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing that you learn. Whatever you want, you have to be yourself first.
Yeah, because who's gonna want to come work for you if you're not like a top tier, player? Like nobody. You're just gonna, attract what you are. So I was an A player maybe in acquisitions when I started. But when I'm trying to grow a company and build a company, like I wasn't an A player, a leader.
Right.
So I worked on that. I worked on it a lot, and I was very conscious about it. Even to this day, I still do it a lot. I have a couple of my team members here at this conference that we're at. Why? Because I want them to see everything and to be exposed to what I've been exposed to help them grow too.
Awesome. Well, we only have 2 questions for you left. The first one is, what are your goals for 2023?
The goals for 2023 is we have 3 main focuses. The first one is that we have this rental portfolio. We're keeping the 18 unit and the other 9, 8 single family houses in California and Hawaii. So I really want to squeeze everything out of these doors, these rental properties, because we should be able to bring in about $60,000 a month on the
Wow.
rental income from all those units. And so we haven't done a good enough job on that in the last quarter or two. So I really want that to be a big focus, that like by the end of this year, that all those are dialed in. We're making the most on them, and they're all on systems, and they're covering all the overhead that we have. And so that's a big, big focus. Second one is that I'm only going to buy home run deals this year. Like only going to buy easy rehabs, stuff that, again, will cash flow day one, and just stuff that we really can't mess up. They're just such a great discount that we're good. So that's the second main goal. And then the third one is for us to continue to expand on the stuff that has worked for us last year. And what we found out is the hosting the events, creating that community of deal makers. It's social media. I've been very active on that. I know we've got a lot to talk about as well on that. And then also just like the networking, but very purposeful networking. Like I'm here. I don't like Vegas. I don't. But I'm here because I'm going to network and I'm going to learn. So I'm focusing on the things that work. And then on top of that, the last one I would say is one big goal is I want to buy a self-storage deal this year. So that's a big goal. Multifamily is great, but I like the idea of owning the business and owning the real estate that business is on. Yeah.
So last question is, where can the listeners find you?
Yeah, so you could find me, most likely it'd be Instagram, Alex Camacho TV. Camacho spelled Camacho. So we post a ton of stuff there that people could learn from. Also, we have a YouTube channel. I'm going to be working on a lot more of that, so they could either go on the YouTube channel or they can go on Instagram. And then we have a lot of our webinars on our YouTube channel. I mean, hour-long webinars. We did 100 of them,
Wow.
2 years straight of just free game.
Free game.
We're
Free game, guys.
Interviewing special guests. We're interviewing people that are the best in the business. We're teaching stuff that we know well that's been working for us.
Right.
We're analyzing deals live, or when we were on the webinar, it was live. And so all that's recorded content. I refer people there often because they'll ask me questions. I'm like, just go watch this video, please, because it can answer all your questions. If you have more, let me know. But go watch this.
Yeah, guys, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars for free game. It's free. All right. Well, thank you, Alex Camacho. This was a great episode, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Let's go.